Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we break down the latest and greatest Premier League action. And joining me, back from hiding, is Joseph Tomlinson.
Yeah.
How are you, sir? How was your week off?
Good. It was very, very nice to have a week off. And you know what? It's been a long time coming. It just happened to coincide with Liverpool absolutely sledgehammering Manchester United. I've seen Zach Jalab on nearly every video over the last 7 days saying, oh, Joe's still in hiding, Joe's still in hiding. You know, another poor result for United that weekend, 0-0. I'm here. I'm not allowed a week's holiday, but I am back, and we're back to do winners and losers.
Yeah, enough of your lovers tiff. This week, we're hitting you with 2 uploads, aren't we? One dedicated to the weekend's victors, one dedicated to the weekend's flops. You know the rates by now when we do this on a Monday. And if you haven't worked it out from this title yet, Newcastle are our designated winners after defeating Wolves 2-1 at St James's, leapfrogging Liverpool into 5th place on 44 points. Only 4 points now behind Tottenham Hotspur, but they have 2 games in hand as well, don't they?
Needed it.
Now, despite being favourites in this tie, Eddie Howe's men very much coming into the game on the back of a very cold run of form, let's say. Lost back-to-back Premier League games after losing just once in their previous 22. They were also stacking up draws for fun, weren't they? Sharing the points in 5 of the 8 league games they've played out since December 31st. So needed, Joseph, a big old momentum swing to get the hunt for Champions League football back on track. And they delivered, didn't they?
Yeah.
So let's break down the match first, and then we're going to do a bit of squad building at the end to justify the very tasty title we've got lined up. So what has been the Magpies' problem of late, and how did they remedy it in this game?
I think big time goal scoring.
Yeah.
At the top end of the pitch, it's just dried up a little bit, hasn't it? They're still very solid at the back end of the pitch, and I think, you know, the goals going in yesterday was clearly a big release moment at St James's Park. Some of the scenes there were absolutely excellent, but quite frankly, in front of goal over the last couple of months, they've just not been good enough. You know, 3 goals from their last 102 shots before the weekend's game. And you've got to remember, 20 of those were big chances. So we're talking a 3% shot conversion rate and somewhere about a 20% conversion rate for big chances.
That's according to Opta as well, not just Football Daily.
Yeah, it's still not really good enough. You know, you look at the forward players, Wilson, Isaac, you know, players like Willock, all underperforming their expected goals. The 2 strikers underperforming their expected goals. Callum Wilson feels like he's struggling a little bit right now, but I have to say I thought Alexander Isaac, who I'm going to come on to in a little bit, was excellent yesterday. He was excellent. You know, Miguel Almiron, who had an amazing first half of the season, finally got dropped yesterday. That's the first time this season he hasn't started a game for Newcastle in the Premier League. So it felt like a big decision to drop him. I know you weren't happy about me including him in my half-season team of the year before Christmas.
No.
And he has gone off a cliff a little bit since that moment.
There we have it.
1 goal in his last 13 appearances across all competitions.
But like you said, it's not just been him, and Eddie Howe did turn over the whole front 3, didn't it?
Yeah,
ahead of
it's
this
been
game.
needed. It's been needed. And Alexander Isaac, I thought, immediately offered something different, especially his off-the-ball work. You know, that is important in the way that team presses, because we made plenty of deal about it at the start of the season, that Eddie Howe's team were the best presses in the league. That has, to some degree, waned a little bit. You know, Wilson averaging 0.4 tackles per game this season, whereas Alexander Isaac yesterday 2. So immediate impact there. I thought he took his goal brilliantly as well. It's a really, really good header, isn't it? Alan Saint-Maximin, who we've derided at times for not being able to be part of a pressing system and be too individualistic at times to work in this Eddie Howe side, I thought was much improved yesterday. Up against Nelson Semedo, I thought we'd give him a really torrid time, created 4 chances, took 2 shots, completed 4 dribbles. So I think there's definite bright sparks in this Newcastle side. I still think across the course of the next 4 months, they might not quite have the quality that Tottenham and Liverpool possess to get into the top 4 in the forward areas. But at the back end of the pitch, they are still very strong, and players like Bruno G just continue to be awesome. I think it was a close game, but Newcastle just had the better quality at the top end of the day.
Yeah, it was a real glimpse into the future as well, wasn't it? Because it was the first time Botman, Bruno and Isaac had started together in league play, and some spine that might prove to be moving forward. But like you said, it was a seasoned campaigner, an old head at this point, who came on and secured the points. As much praise as we want to give Eddie Howe for turning over that forward line, injecting some much needed energy into it, he did have to turn to one of this season's stars to walk away with all 3. Wouldn't have been surprised, by the way, if this game finished 1-1, because 10 of the 15 Premier League encounters played out between these two sides have finished 1-1 in the past, a 67% draw rate. I think it's the highest in Premier League history. But yeah, fortunately for the Toon army, Almiron scored yet another XG defying goal. The Paraguayan combining really well with Willock down that right-hand side.
A solid deflection, a chunky old deflection.
Yeah, from Kilman. And also, that back 5 went to sleep. Aït-Nouri wasn't even in the picture.
Mate, I thought that was the wrong decision by Lopetgui to go to the back 5 at that moment. I thought they were actually getting a foothold in the game with the back 4. They got the equaliser. And then I know that it had worked previously at Tottenham, but then to shift to the back 5 in this game, I thought it gave them too much space on the flanks for Saint-Maximin and Almiron, and that's where they got punished in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Got a couple of notes on that down here as well. But yeah, the Paraguayan combining with Willock, like I said, scoring just his second league goal of 2023, although that is now 10 for the season, only the second time he's hit double figures in a domestic campaign. And yeah, the changes Eddie Howe made ahead of the game, impressive, but also the in-game tweaks came off as well. Almiron, of course, part of that double substitution he made on 68 minutes. So was Wilson. Wilson not very impactful at all, but it was just a case of, I think, getting Isaac, getting Alan Saint-Maximin on, who didn't have an awful lot of starts prior to this, getting them off the pitch and putting someone with a little bit more energy on there. They were both flagging, weren't they? I don't think either of them had a shot in the second half, Saint-Maximin or Alexander Isaac. Although, you know, Lopetgui, I quite liked a couple of his in-game adjustments as much as you...
I mean, Hwang had an immediate impact, but I didn't like the 5 at the back switch.
Hwang scored. I think Pedro Neto came on for Adama Traore at half-time. I thought he was a little bit more assured in possession, although not much more potent in terms of going forward. But yeah, I think when Howe's got a full squad at his disposal, there is decent depth there. But I think look at some of those options, some of the decisions he's had to make yesterday, and you do kind of appreciate the job he's doing. They are more than the sum of their parts, and when you look at them as individual components, it does make their hunt for top 4 much more impressive, right? Particularly with Wilson's form nosediving, only 1 goal in all competitions post World Cup. Jacob Murphy and Saint-Maximin have 2 goals between them all season in league play. Isaac is that great hope, isn't he? But only missed 13 games so far this season with a hamstring injury. So probably a good time in this episode to progress onto the squad building aspect. Although before that, should Nick Pope have been sent off?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a nailed-on red card and penalty, which would have seen him banned, I think, for 4 games, because it would have been his second straight red in the Premier League, a la Casemiro. But yeah, he just takes Jimenez out, doesn't he? No attempt at playing the ball. So double jeopardy's out the window. It's a red card and a pen.
I think Raul Jimenez has been... He could have been much more cute with it. He's kind of stopped. He's looked up. He's ran into him with his shoulder. If that's Jamie Vardy or Harry Kane, and they give it the old arch, Nick Pope is off the pitch.
The ref is so far away, he doesn't have a clear visual. And if he doesn't have a clear visual, VAR has to send him to the monitor. To not even review at the monitor, if the ref looks at the monitor and goes, do you know what, I'm sticking with, there's not enough contact there. I agree with Chris Hamill. Fair enough. But he's clearly not got a visual on that. Send him to the monitor. VAR had a terrible weekend yet again. Yeah, I'm sure Wolves fans are absolutely seething. So we thought we'd get that in just before we moved on. Let's talk about some next level players then for Newcastle. What parts of this team need upgrading, Joseph? Where would you go shopping in the summer if you wanted to make Newcastle a bona fide top 4 side? Well, I think for sure creative midfield. I think they need a player that can create chances from open play that's not named Kieran Trippier. I just think that they lack dynamism in that 10 space, so definitely in there. I think there's potential to upgrade at centre-back. I know Fabian Schär has had an excellent season, but I do think that's a possibility. And at left-back, where Dan Burn has done an amazing job and is clearly a fantastic character in that dressing room and is having a really good season. But I'd like to see an option that offers something slightly more in attack.
Yeah.
You know, it can balance out Kieran Trippier slightly more. So I think if I was throwing two desperate positions down, I'd go attacking mid, left back. If you wanted to add a third in there, I'd throw a centre back in too.
Yeah, I like the recruitment policy so far as well. They've gone after young, hungry players with massive upside. Don't mind overpaying to get them at the formative stage of their career, and also solid Premier League players with maybe something to prove, or maybe a little bit more Eddie Howe can sort of extract from them. So with that in mind, we have comprised a shortlist. I agree with you. Centre back, when Shaw or Botman drop out, it's Lascelles, isn't it? That's a big old downgrade. Left back, if Byrne drops out or he's moved to centre back, Target comes in. Central midfield, I did a little tweet on Bruno Guimaraes a couple of weeks ago saying that you've got one of the most press-resistant midfielders in the league with a wonderful array of passing, but a lot of the time he ends up shuttling the ball out wide because there is no line-breaking midfielder beyond him.
Yeah,
so I think
agree.
Either someone that enables him to push up the pitch, or him striking up some sort of relationship with an attack-minded midfielder would be very beneficial for them. And yes, a forward. Isaac can also be playing that left-hand side, can't he? So maybe a number 9 as well. Okay, a few names down here that are mainly from my brain. But you did throw in Kieran Tierney because you saw him linked with the club, didn't you, in the Telegraph and the Times for £30 million. Do you like it?
I think it's okay.
Starting at left.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think £30 million is quite a lot, given that Arsenal will be taking a £5 million profit on a player who is really struggled with injuries during his spell there. And they also have, Nuno Tavares out on loan, who can come back in as a backup to the likes of Alexander Zinchenko, even though he's playing as a wing-back at Marseille. I think Tierney would be a solid signing, but I do think that I would have fairly major concerns about his injury record at this stage. Just, he hasn't been able to put it together enough, has he?
I think he'd be an exceptional signing. I think the sort of player they could only get because he has those question marks over his fitness. And I guess...
Would you pay 30 mil for him though?
I guess financially it's not a risk for them because they have infinite funds. So if it was another club who weren't in a similar situation, then I'll probably share your concerns, but probably worth the roll of the dice for Newcastle. Because if you can get 30 games out of him in a season, that is going to shore up that left flank, particularly from a defensive standpoint, and he'll buy into Howe's whole way of playing, won't he? A physical specimen will be applying himself, you'd imagine. I also thought it was worth throwing Piero Hincapi in there from Bayer Leverkusen. Had my eye on him this season. He's been playing mainly in a back three, sometimes deployed at left back as well. Very young, only 21, has been linked with Chelsea in the past. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him, and it feels like someone that Newcastle would have shortlisted already. So obviously he could, play understudy at left back if necessary, and at centre back. And probably be okay with riding the bench for a season while Shaw, turns 32, 33. I'm not quite sure, but I thought he was worth considering. You've gone for a bit more of a household name.
Yeah, a bit more of a household name, but I don't know whether it's actually achievable. But I'm putting forward Kim Min-jae at Napoli, who of course has the release clause that becomes active for I think 6 weeks of the summer, about the 40 million mark. I just think he's an incredibly gifted centre-back, and if Newcastle are being punchy and they want to go to the next, he's the type of player who takes them to the next level. A statement signing at centre back. I know he's playing on the left for Napoli, but he is right-footed, so you'd hope he'd be able to play on the right
with Botman on the
left.
Botman
on the left. I think if Newcastle beat out, a Manchester United or a top team on the continent to Kim Min-jae's signature, I think a lot of people would be like, wow, that is a big signing for them. So I think that more of a statement name, but he is incredible. It's going to be hard to get him out of Napoli.
Yeah, it'd be really harsh
to leave Naples for Newcastle.
Yeah, on Fabian Schär as well, who's had an exceptional season. I think he's been better than Botman, actually, in my opinion. But those decisions they're the decisions that are going to have to be made, aren't they, in order to take the club up a notch. Unfortunately, you might have to leave certain servants behind. I don't know if he falls in that category this season. I don't know. Yeah, Kim Min-jae, like you said, Newcastle have got to convince people as well that to move up north, which can't be overlooked as a thing. It's why the London clubs, like Fulham, find it easy to nick players from Sporting, like Palhinha, for example, because they get to offer them the London lifestyle, whereas that might not be the case here. But that'd be a big old culture change, wouldn't it? Then midfield, we found it easier to find options, right?
Yeah.
Because we have sort of a backlog of players that we really rate and really like. Sangare has come back on everyone's radar after 2 or 3 years away from the limelight on Euro Football Daily, playing in that double pivot for PSV. I actually like Joey Veerman as well in that side, but they already have Bruno Guimaraes, maybe some similarities there. Sangare contracted until 2027, again being linked with massive clubs. He is just an all-action midfielder. I think 5 goal contributions, despite predominantly being there to sort of protect the back line. He's taken on a more of a box-to-box role, it would seem, in the Eredivisie. I think having someone in your side like Sangare would enable Bruno to push forward. So maybe you're getting the best or more output out of the Brazilian that way. Anyone else you want to throw down before I suggest another one?
I mean, for sure, James Maddison. James Maddison is the guy for me who is he's like a revolutionary signing for this Newcastle side in the way he picks up space in between lines and creates chances at ease. I think he would connect the midfield to the forward line really, really well. So I think James Maddison is a must, but I do think there's quite a few players in teams that are potentially going to go down that could be pillaged. You know, you look at Everton, you think Amadou Onana, could he be taken if they were to face the drop? If Southampton went down, could you tempt Romeo Lavia away from the club as well? So different profiles of midfielders, but lots of players that can play in various roles that could be pillaged at cut prices. You say West Ham went down, Paqueta would be an incredible pickup for Newcastle to play a slightly more advanced role alongside Bruno Guimaraes.
The Samba in the North East.
There's some genuine talent down in that relegation dogfight from just absolute dross sides right now.
Yeah. I mean, other names I've got down here, a little bit more in the same mould as Sangare, in that they would mean Bruno can push forward. Maxence Caqueret from Lyon, we've been talking about him for a little while. Plays on the left-hand side of a 4-3-3 for the most part, contracted until 2027. He profiles a little bit like Thiago at Liverpool, and that lots of progressive passing in there, but also very solid defensive output and chips in with assists pretty regularly. So I think he would be an interesting option from the base of midfield. Enzo Lefebvre, who we almost saw go to Bournemouth. He's being touted as one of the next big things, right, at 23 years old. I mean, Bournemouth almost had a stellar January, it's worth saying that. Ouattara has been great since he's come. But yeah, Enzo Lefebvre contracting until 2024, so it might be a bit more achievable getting him out of the club for a reasonable fee. 10 goals and assists this season. Also plays in that double pivot. He's done extremely well for Lorient this campaign, hasn't he? I do think Maddison is probably the outstanding one. Yeah. If we were going to discuss a centre forward, I think Jonathan David would be a really good signing for Newcastle. Maybe that pushes Isaac out to the right. Maybe that pushes a Maddison or a Almiron out to the right. Sorry, Isaac out to the left. But what do you think?
I don't know. I think there's a couple of options. I think Marcus Thuram's definitely going to be under consideration because he's available on a free transfer. You know, he can operate off the left and he can operate as a number 9. We've seen him predominantly operate as a number 9 this season. His goal scoring numbers are through the roof. Alternatively, you know, can you tempt, maybe it's even for another season on loan, but could you tempt Arsenal into letting Flo Balogun leave? We've seen how destructive he's been in Ligue 1 this year, and when he arrives back at Arsenal, I don't see him getting an awful lot of minutes. It might be the time that Arsenal go, do you know what, his value is sky high, he's proven he can do it in a top 5 league. Can we get some money for him now that's in excess of where it will be in a couple of years when, you know, he's not been able to break into the side? Because I think Eddie Nketiah is going to be ahead of him in the pecking order. Gabi Jesus is ahead of him in the pecking order. So even if it's a loan for a Flo Balogun, but I would probably go Marcus Thuram if I had to pick one.
I think for what Arsenal are going to demand for Balogun, particularly given the season he had. You know, we saw them get £25 million for Joe Willock after a dynamite 6 months. I think I would still stick for Jonathan David, probably for 10 to 15 million euros more. I mean, he's averaged 0.65 goals and assists across 3 campaigns in Ligue 1, contract up in 2025, so they're not in a particularly strong negotiating position. 23 goals and assists, like I said, this season. He's just been consistently excellent. Those numbers spell out, get me to a bigger league. I can deal with a better league, let's say. And he still fits the profile of what Eddie Howe has generally gone for, right? Young, hungry, physically capable. So, yeah, I think that would be a great shout. Let us know how you would level up Newcastle in the comments below. Would you stray away from any of the suggestions we've made, or would you pluck on 3 of them, let's say? Drop me your thoughts in the comments below. It is worth saying now that Newcastle, according to the bookies, Joseph, 2-1 to get into the top 4.
I think Liverpool are still favourites, aren't they?
Do you share, Liverpool are evens, yeah? Do you share that same level of confidence?
No,
how do you
I'm sticking
feel?
with Tottenham. I'm sticking with my shout of Tottenham. I know that Liverpool obviously smacked Man United about, but it's very up and down. Tottenham it's just so mid. Like, it's just like, they just seem to like stumble across like 2-0. It's just, I don't know. I thought Pedro Porro was excellent at the weekend, by the way. Absolutely excellent at the weekend. And I just think that Harry Kane is the reason they'll be able to get over the line. No other side in the race has a player on the form of Harry Kane. He's on 20 league goals already. Yeah,
I think Isaac is going to have to go supernova if Newcastle stand any sort of chance. Right. Okay, that is it for this week's winners. Stay tuned for our losers, which will be coming very shortly. Like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Goodbye.